Good morning. My name is Mike Hurst. I'm the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Mississippi. I thank you all for being here today. We're here today to announce the launch of the Mississippi Human Trafficking Council. It's a new endeavor, the first ever of its kind here in the state of Mississippi, bringing together local, state, federal, and tribal law enforcement, along with other governmental agencies, non-governmental organizations, and nonprofits to form a new statewide entity to rescue and protect victims, to prevent human trafficking, and to prosecute criminals. Now let me give you a little background on how I got here. 6 years ago, as an assistant U.S. attorney, I was profoundly affected when this office prosecuted two out-of-state gentlemen who had come to our state solely for the purpose of engaging in sex with a child under the age of 10 years old. A few years ago, or actually just recently, we prosecuted an individual here in the city of Jackson who had purchased a 15-year-old girl to put in the sex trafficking trade. And most recently, this office prosecuted an individual who had brought a girl from Tennessee into Mississippi and specifically pimped her out on the internet to monsters who would do unspeakable things. And before I go on, I want to give credit where credit is due to our own Assistant U.S. Attorney, Glenda Haynes, who is here today, who prosecuted all these cases. Glenda, thank you. But let me be perfectly clear. These sick individuals and their actions are pure evil, plain and simple. And when we uncover in this office these types of crimes, we're going to do everything in our power to prosecute these evildoers to the fullest extent under the law, period. Now, I get asked all the time, what is human trafficking? Well, the best definition I've found is the crime of compelling or coercing a person's services, their labor, or commercial sex acts, or exploiting a minor for commercial sex. Now, one of the big reasons why we're here today and why these men and women are standing behind me is because the National Human Trafficking Hotline tells us that in 2017, the state of Mississippi had 42 cases of human trafficking. And that's 42 too many. But what's more concerning is just 1 year later, in 2018, that number had more than doubled to 86 cases of human trafficking. Now, Governor Bryant recognized this issue early. And in 2014, he called together the Mississippi Human Trafficking Task Force to study this issue and what the state and others could do on this issue. And they came out with a report in 2015 with some really good recommendations. And what my hope for this council is to take those recommendations in that report and to put those into action. In 2017, the Mississippi Center for Violence Prevention, a group led by Sandy Middleton, started the Central Mississippi Human Trafficking Task Force. And Sandy's group went on to start a task force in the Pine Belt, and in Tupelo, and in Batesville. And one of the things we're going to do with this council is expand those task forces and institute other investigative and prosecutorial task forces to address the parts of the state that still have not been touched by law enforcement. Now, as I mentioned to you earlier, I was profoundly affected 6 years ago with that case, and a couple of years ago, right before I became U.S. Attorney, we started looking at this issue. And others have been looking at this issue, and we have today Speaker Philip Gunn, who spearheaded this issue in the state legislature and passed some remarkable state legislation that will help our partners in law enforcement at the local and state level really address this. And Speaker Gunn, I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And we also have Commissioner Marshall Fisher, who leads the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, and his office has been designated as the lead agency for the state on human trafficking. And I want to thank Commissioner Fisher for being here today as well. But the mission of the council is pretty simple. We're going to prevent trafficking, we're going to protect victims, and we're going to prosecute criminals. And we're going to do that with these individuals behind me. To my right are the three individuals that will lead the Mississippi Human Trafficking Council. Kat Van Buskirk, an Assistant U.S. Attorney from the Southern District of Mississippi, Susan Bradley, Assistant U.S. Attorney from the Northern District of Mississippi, and Ashley Lucas, who is the new Mississippi State Human Trafficking Coordinator with the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. But this council will also consist of 5 subcommittees, which we have here on the wall behind these individuals. Outreach and Public Awareness, which will be led by Mandy Davis of the Department of Public Safety. Strategic Planning and Trafficking Protocols, which will be led by Dr. Tamara Hurst, no relation, from the University of Southern Mississippi. Policy and Legislation, which will be led by Laura Hunter, General Counsel at the Department of Public Safety, and Angela Cockerham, a state representative who was instrumental in getting human trafficking legislation passed in the legislature. Training Subcommittee, which will be led by Paula Broom with the Mississippi Attorney General's Office. And finally, Victim Services Subcommittee, which will be led by Holly Jeffries with the Child Advocacy Centers and Heather Wagner with the Mississippi Department of Health. These men and women standing behind me are our representatives. They are our advocates for seeing human trafficking end in the state of Mississippi. But along with these subcommittees, as I mentioned earlier, we will also have task forces. On the wall beside me is a map of the Northern District of Mississippi, which my colleague Chad Lamar is the U.S. Attorney for, and the Southern District of Mississippi, of which I am over. And on this map, we are showing you where we are breaking down our districts into investigative and prosecutorial task forces. In the Southern District, we'll have 5 in Jackson metro area, in East Central Mississippi, in the Hattiesburg area, in Southwest Mississippi, and on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And in the Northern District, Chad may speak of this, we'll have one in the Eastern and in the Western, with Oxford in the middle. Now let me summarize that the council will be a centralized, statewide network of stakeholders and task forces that will operate comprehensively and collaboratively throughout the state to end human trafficking. As I've said on other occasions, human trafficking is a crime against humanity. It's literally modern day slavery and oppression of human beings. And as a father of 6, I take this personally. And I'm going to do everything in my power to fight this evil scourge that is spreading across our state. It's a priority of this office, and it's a priority of the Department of Justice. Let me give you a happy ending to those 3 terrible cases I told you about at the very beginning. All those individuals that did those unspeakable things were convicted by this office and received long prison sentences. And again, this council will do just that. We will prosecute those monsters. We will do everything in our power to rescue and protect these victims. And we'll do all we can to prevent human trafficking from occurring in the future. When I sat down to write about this, I thought about a verse that really just spoke to me, Proverbs 21:15. When justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous and terror to evildoers. Through this effort, we will do justice. We will bring hope to the hopeless. We will bring a voice to the voiceless. And we will bring power to the powerless and be that beacon of light in this darkness in this world. And we will do all these things together through the Mississippi Human Trafficking Council.